So first of all, I have kept the CLO in the first slide. Okay, so I think everyone knows what this CLO means. CLO means course learning outcome. So after completing this mechanics course, you are supposed to be able to do all these things. Okay, or you can say it is expected that after completing this mechanics course, you will be able to determine resultant in planar force system, identify and quantify all forces associated with the static framework, right? You will be able to draw shear force diagram and bending moment diagram. Okay, so these outcomes, we expect that after this mechanics course, you will be able to achieve those outcomes, right? And these are the textbooks that that you can refer in order to solve more questions or to go into more details about the concepts that I will cover, right? So in addition to these textbooks, you can also refer these books which are very known internationally. Okay, so this Hibler and Timoshenko. These books you can consider as textbook also. There is no problem if you consider them as textbook instead of this Sames and Beer. Okay. So now I'm coming to the main point. Okay. So I'm going to start the first topic in this revision class. Okay. The first topic, as you know, is equilibrium of points. So means before starting mechanics chapter 1, it is better to have a quick knowledge about the mechanics. Okay. So I think you all are aware of this mechanics, how we define mechanics, but still I'm going to read this definition. So mechanics is a branch of the physical sciences that is concerned with the state of rest or motion of a single body or multiple bodies subjected to the action of forces. Okay, that means in mechanics we study a body, whether it is in rest or motion, and in addition to study of the state of rest or motion, we also study the causes which. Yes, Sanai saying, please share this PPT. Yeah, I will share the PPT as well as I'm recording this video, so you will get a recording also. Okay, so in mechanics, we study state of rest or motion as well as its causes. That means all the forces which are causing this motion that we study. Okay. So in this way, you can define mechanics, and it is also important to know your boundaries. Okay. It is very popular saying that we should know our boundaries. So you should know when you are studying this mechanics course, then you should know your boundary of this mechanics theory or mechanics subject that you are studying. So this mechanics subject you can only apply to study mechanics of rigid bodies. Okay, mechanics can be categorized into 3 subjects. Okay, the first subject may be named as mechanics of fluids, where you will study state of rest or motion of fluids and their causes. Okay, and the other subject is mechanics of deformable bodies, where you consider the behavior of deformable bodies. And we are focusing on this category, which is mechanics of rigid bodies. So from the name itself, it is very clear that we will consider only those bodies which are rigid, which are not able to be deformed by application of forces, okay, that you are applying. So this mechanics of rigid body, you can further divide into 2 categories. The first one is known as statics and second one is known as dynamics. In statics, you study the state of rest, and in dynamics, you study the state of motion. Fine. So because you are studying mechanics, so it is very first means it should be first step for you to study the Newton's 3 laws. Okay, these are the foundation of mechanics. Okay, so most of you knows that what is the Newton's first law, second law, and third law, but still let's get a quick revision. So Newton's first law states that if there is any body, any object, and it is in rest or motion, then it will try to maintain that state. If it is in rest, it will try to be in rest. If it is in motion, then it will try to be in the motion, right? So this law is also known as law of inertia or first law of motion. Okay, and then second law is the basically second law of motion. Here Newton states that if there is any body and you apply an external force. Okay, so external force, net external force will produce an acceleration, and Newton proposes that the acceleration can be calculated by the formula F is equal to ma, where F is the net external force. Net external force. Okay. There exist two types of forces in any bodies. The first one is known as internal force, and the second one is known as external force. So where here this F means net external force. Okay, so it is very important to remember this term. So only this external force produces acceleration. Then comes the third law, and in third law Newton states that if there is any force, then there must be equal and opposite force. Okay, so for every action force you will get a reaction force, equal in strength and opposite in direction. And there are many assumptions under which these three laws are developed, or these three laws are studied. Okay, what are the assumptions? Like these three laws are applicable only for point object, okay, point mass, and these laws are applicable only for those motions which are far lesser than the speed of light. Okay. Okay, so only those objects which travel at very less speed as compared to the speed of light, there only you can apply these three laws of motion. These laws are also applicable only for those systems where you follow inertial frame. Okay, so there are certain assumptions that you have to keep in mind while applying these Newton's law of motion. So again, many times I have named the term forces. Okay, so what we mean by force? So force is some effort, okay, or some basically causes which produces motion, right? So forces you can categorize into two. You can divide into two categories. The first one you can name as concurrent forces or concurrent system of forces, and second one you can name as non-current system of forces, right? So if you find anywhere where an object is subjected to three or more forces, or two or more forces, and all the forces are directed towards one point, that means if you extend the line of action of each force, and you are finding that all line of action of forces are meeting at same point, and you are getting one intersecting point. So this point of intersection, if you achieve, then you will call the forces as concurrent forces. But suppose you get some case where line of action are not meeting at same point, then you will call the system of force as non-concurrent system of force. So there are two categories, concurrent and non-concurrent system of forces. Okay, fine. So Newton's law of motion only deals with the problems of this concurrent category of system of forces. Okay, but if you get suppose non-concurrent system of force, then in addition to Newton's law of motion, you also need to apply some other forces. Then only you can basically determine the complete behavior of the object. Okay, otherwise after only applying Newton's law of motion, you will not be able to predict complete behavior. Okay, so suppose this is the situation, and you want to analyze the system, then you can apply equilibrium of points, and whenever you want to maintain equilibrium of points, okay, then it is important for you to find out reaction of different forces, sorry, resultant of different forces. That means suppose there are three forces. Okay, there is a system of force where three forces are acting, then you have to find out the resultant, and after finding the resultant, you can say whether the system is in equilibrium or there is some unbalanced force. Okay, so finding resultant is very important for means determining whether the system is in equilibrium or not. So how we determine the equilibrium, or how we determine the resultant of a force? You can apply these two laws. Okay, the first law is parallelogram law, and the second law is triangle law. Okay, parallelogram law states that suppose there is a point, and at that point two forces are acting. Let's name the first force as F1 and the second force as F2. Okay, and they are arranged in this order. So what is the order? Order is that both forces are directed away from the point of application. Okay, That means their tails are located at same points and head are located away from the point of application. Okay, so if this is the arrangement, then you can apply parallelogram law, and you can just make parallelogram, okay, by considering these two as sides of the parallelogram. Then you will get a diagonal, and that diagonal will represent the resultant. Okay, so this is a graphical method of finding resultant. But if you know these angles, this means magnitude of side and magnitude of side, then you can apply some formulas of sine and cosine also to determine the resultant. So numerically also you can find out this value of resultant. This parallelogram can be divided into two triangles. Okay, so you may draw one triangle out of this parallelogram and one more triangle of this form from this parallelogram. Okay, so why we are dividing this parallelogram into these two triangles? Because if you, that means if for the same situation, if you are able to draw a triangle, okay, in this particular form, then you will be able to apply triangle law, and triangle law gives several other formulas for finding the resultant. Okay, so it's very important to understand this arrangement, this order of forces in a triangle. Okay, so this triangle, as you can see, is made from these forces, the force F1. So F1 we are drawing again over here as shown in the previous system, exactly same. Okay, so F1 is shown like this one here. So I'm showing F1 again here, and F2 I have shifted from this place to this new place. Okay, and I am making a order between F1 and F2 in this way, that this is F1, then from the head of F1 I am drawing the next force F2. So from the head of F1 I am connecting the tail of F2. So if you connect the head of F1 and tail of F2 and form the triangle, then your triangle is you can say right, and you can apply triangle law. But if this is not the order, you are following any different order, then you cannot apply triangle law. Okay, that means if this is your F1 and this one you are considering as F2 and you are considering this triangle, then your triangle law is applicable. So this theory we'll see in examples also, and suppose it is not very clear to you at this stage how I am arranging the forces in the triangle law, then from examples it will be more clear. So this arrangement is one option for you to apply triangle law, and there is another option, and this option is that first you draw F2 force. Okay, so this is F2 force, and I am drawing in the triangular representation exactly the same F2 over here. Okay, and I have shifted this F1 over here. Why? Because to connect the head of F2 with the tail of F1. Okay, so this is F2 and this is F1. I have connected the head and tail of these two forces, and then I'm getting another triangle. So if you are getting this triangle, then you can apply triangle law. So what this triangle law states, that we will see after a few minutes. Okay, so if you know this triangle, means if you have drawn these triangles, then you can apply very beautiful formulas to find out these resultants. Okay, so what are those formulas that we will see just after a few minutes. But before that, let's understand one more theorem that is known as Lami's theorem. Okay, Lami's theorem, and this Lami's theorem is applicable to only those situations where your system of forces consists of three forces. Okay, so if there is any system of force where you are finding three forces, then you can apply Lami's theorem. And there is another criteria that has been established for this Lami's theorem, is that all the three forces must be directed outward from the point of application, or they all must be directed towards the point of application. Okay, so as you can see, the arrangement in this parallelogram law, arrangement of the forces in this triangle law, and arrangement of the forces in Lami's theorem are very important. Okay, so whatever directions I am using in this graphical representation, these direction of forces are very, very important. Okay, so as you can see in Lami's theorem, I have considered the three forces directed outward to the point O. Okay, and these magnitude of forces I have named as A, C, and B. Okay, and I have also named these angles. This angle opposite to force A I have named as alpha, and this angle opposite to B force I have named as beta, and this angle opposite to C force I have named as gamma. So if you name the force system in this particular way, and you follow the direction as prescribed in this diagram, then you can apply Lami's theorem and the formula derived by Lami's theorem. So what formula has been derived by Lami's theorem? This is the formula. Okay, so directly you can apply this formula, and this formula says that this magnitude of force A divided by the sine of this angle opposite to this force will be equal to this force B, and divided by sine of the angle opposite to this force B by sine beta, and equal to this force divided by sine of the angle opposite to this force C. Okay, so in this way we can apply Lami's theorem to determine the unknown forces or unknown angles. Okay, so you can consider this single equation as a combination of two equations. Okay, so one equation you can get from these two equalities. Okay, that is A by sine alpha is equal to B by sine beta. Basically there are three equations in this single equation. So this is one combination. A by sine alpha is equal to B by sine beta. This is another equation. B by sine beta is equal to C by sine gamma. And there is another combination, that is A by sine alpha is equal to C by sine gamma. That means you may get three equations out of this single equation of Lami's theorem. So if you have three equations, then it is possible that you can determine several unknowns. I think at least two unknowns or three unknowns you can determine. That we'll see from example from this single equation of Lami's theorem. Okay, good. Then comes this formula, and this formula we apply for triangle law. Okay, so if you have drawn the triangle for any force system, then you can apply law of sines and law of cosines. So law of sines, this law of sine is very similar to Lami's theorem. Just difference is that here in law of sine, you means you are taking a triangle, okay, and accordingly you are finding this angle alpha, beta, and gamma. And in Lami's theorem, you are applying these forces in this form and assigning the angles. Okay. So what this law of sine states? It states that magnitude of force A. So suppose this is a force and its magnitude is A, then A divided by sine of the angle opposite to this force, that is this alpha. So A by sine alpha will be equal to this magnitude of this force B divided by sine of the angle opposite to this force B, that is sine beta, is equal to C by sine gamma. Okay, and if you are getting a triangle, then in addition to this law of sine, you can also use some formula that are derived for law of cosines. So law of cosine will give you this formula as A square is equal to B square plus C square minus 2BC cos alpha, B square is equal to C square plus A square minus 2CA cos beta, and these three. So these formulas are very important. You have to remember them in order to solve the problems of mechanics. Okay, and now we have with us another theory, another concept that is used very widely for solving the problems having a system of force in 3 dimensions. Okay, so all these scenarios are discussing the forces, the system of forces that are planar. So it is very important. Please remember that all these concepts that you have studied here at this place are applicable to what kind of system of force? Planar system of forces. Is it clear to everyone? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So this
Yes, sir.
this concept that we have discussed at this place, okay, these are applicable to only planar system of forces. Okay, but suppose you get a problem where the system of force is not planar, but it is means it is subjected on a three-dimensional space, then you cannot apply these formula, these concepts, then you will use a different concept, that is vector concept, method of vector you have to use. Okay, so how we use that thing? For that, first you have to understand the unit vectors. Okay, unit vectors. Okay, so as you know that if you are considering a three-dimensional space where you are considering x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis, so along the x-axis you can take a unit vector and you will name it as I. Along y-axis, j. Along z-axis, k. Okay, so if you have assigned these unit vectors along x, y, and z, then you can define any vector in the three-dimensional space, any vector. Okay, with the help of these three unit vectors, you can define any vector in 3D, in three-dimensional space. So suppose there is a vector A and you want to define it, then just take its component in x direction, and let's suppose this is ax. Its component in y direction, let's suppose it is ay. Its component in z direction, and let's suppose it is az. So just using these three components, you can define the vector A as axi plus ayj and plus azk. Here by mistake I have written all the terms in capitals, so no issue here. Just I means in place of small I'm using capital, so please don't mind that mistake, please, so that you can understand. Okay, so suppose this is the means vectorial representation of any vector A in terms of unit vectors, then you can find out magnitude also. So magnitude of this vector A will be under root ax square plus ay square plus az square, and you can also find out unit vector along this vector A also. So what is I? I is the unit vector along x-axis, j is the unit vector along y-axis, and k is the unit vector along z-axis. But suppose you want to define a unit vector along this vector A, and let's name it as UA. Then UA can be defined as this vector A divided by its magnitude. So in vector theorem, we define any vector by a bold letter. So here you can see in the numerator, I have written A, but in bold character. Okay. This is a bold A. So bold means a vector notation. And here I have written simple A. So that is denoting the magnitude of this vector. So A divided by A, if you divide this vector by its magnitude A, so you will get this equation. And this equation you can replace by this new equation, where you can see this ax by A I have written as cos alpha, ay by A I have written as cos beta, and az by A I have written as cos gamma. Okay, so what are these angles? Basically this alpha is denoting the angle of this vector A with respect to x-axis. Okay, so this angle is, what is this angle? This angle is alpha. And then cos beta, what this cos beta is denoting? Angle of this vector A with respect to y-axis. Okay. And then gamma, this gamma is denoting the angle between vector A and axis z. So angle between vector A and z is denoting the angle gamma. So in this way you can represent unit vector along any arbitrary vector. And for any vector, this is also a formula that cos square alpha plus cos square beta plus cos square gamma should be equal to 1. And as you know that UA is a unit vector. So if you multiply UA by the magnitude of the vector, then you will get the original vector. Okay. So these are some formula that first I am discussing in one slide. Okay, so after this slide you will not see any concept. We will just try to apply these concepts on some examples. We will see that what kind of variation we can get in the questions. Okay, what difficulty we can face in applying these concepts. Those things we will see after this slide. But in this slide I am going to cover all the concepts that you will use in the equilibrium of points. Okay, so just a few concepts are remaining. After finishing the concepts, I will directly come to the numericals problems. Okay, fine. So another concept that you use in the equilibrium of point is basically concept of free body diagram. Okay, so suppose we have got a problem where two spherical or cylindrical balls are lying in one container, and this is the situation. All dimensions are given to you and you want to apply these concepts. Then first you have to draw the free body diagram. So for drawing free body diagram, first we will take the forces at the contact surfaces. Okay, so this is the contact surface between two blocks. So we will draw the reaction forces based on Newton's third law. So Newton's third law states that if you apply a normal reaction on one ball, then equal and opposite reaction you will get for the other ball also. So here I am drawing two forces, and suppose this is weight of the two balls. These forces are showing weights. Okay, and suppose this is the reaction on this ball due to this wall, okay, container, wall of the container, and you also are getting one normal reaction from this wall to the cylinder or ball, and this is another normal reaction. Then for this situation you can draw free body diagram of each spherical ball. Okay, so this will be the FBD of this ball, and this will be FBD of the another spherical ball. Okay, good. So all the concepts I have covered in this single slide. Now we can come to the examples in the problems, and we can try to apply these concepts. So any doubt in this discussion?